Okay, hi there everyone, and welcome to today's University Business Web Seminar. It's great to have you all with us. My name is Kurt Isidurley. I'm the Web Seminar Editor here at UB, and I'll be your host and co-presenter, as well as your moderator. The title of our event, as you see here, is UB Survey Results, Improving Campus Mail Center Operations, and is being brought to you through the generous support of our sponsor for today, Pitney Bowes. First off, as attendees, members of our audience are still coming in here. First, I'll start with a bit of background about our topic for today. Campus mail centers are continuing to evolve rapidly. The continued increase in online ordering has resulted in large volumes of packages being delivered to campuses, creating a variety of challenges. University Business has recently conducted a subscriber survey about this topic, asking higher ed leaders how their institutions are handling this increase, their greatest challenges, and how much insight they have into their shipping costs. Today we're going to be taking a look at the results of the survey, and we'll also learn some more about how to improve campus mail operations to improve efficiency and flexibility, reduce costs, and meet changing student expectations. We're looking forward to a great discussion here, plus live Q&A, so do stay tuned. We're going to get started in just a minute or two. First off, though, just some quick housekeeping. First item, as it says here, if you need technical support at any time, you can use the chat panel at the right side of your screen. Just select the name of our event host and producer, Jason York. Let him know if you're having any technical problems. He'll be able to help you out there. Also, as it says here, if you don't have computer speakers or if you prefer to listen privately over the phone, we will post a phone number and access code in that chat panel to right there. You can use those to get audio access over the phone at any time. Also, as I said earlier, we welcome your questions for the Q&A. We'll save that for the end, but you can feel free to ask a question at any time. Just enter it in the Q&A, bottom right-hand corner of your screen there, and we'll get to as many as we can when we get to the end of the presentation here. So once again, questions for us at any time, just enter in the Q&A, save the chat for technical problems, and we'll get to as many questions in the Q&A as we can at the end. Also, we're commonly asked, speaking of questions, about accessing the presentation at a later time, either the slides or the archive recording. And yes, everyone who registered or attended here today will be getting a follow-up email later on with links to where you can find the recording here. We'll archive it on the UB site. We'll also have a link in there for the slides if you want to go back over them. Share with anyone at your institution who you think should see the content. You'll have ample opportunity to do that later on, so don't worry about that. Okay, so with that, on to our program here. Like I said earlier, my name is Kurt Isidurley. I'm the Web Seminar Editor here. I have a variety of roles as an editor at UB. I also conduct our market research projects where we take surveys of our subscribers, and that's what we did here, and we're going to get to the results in just a second. I'm also joined by Jason DeStratis. He is product manager there at Pitney Bowes. He's going to offer some commentary on the survey results, and we'll talk about some solutions. So, Jason, before we get started, you just want to say hello?
Hi, Kurt, and everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results with you, and of course, hopefully providing some additional commentary, some color commentary along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for being with us. All right. So first off, I'll just dive right in here. First with some background about our survey. Obviously, the survey was developed by us here at UB and Pitney Bowes. We were interested in exploring some of these issues related to campus mail operations and package delivery, some of those things that I described in my introduction there. And as we'll see, this has created a lot of challenges for a lot of colleges and universities out there. So we developed the survey. It was deployed the end of February. So this is very recently, just under 2 weeks ago. And we had 163 higher ed leaders from around the country participate, including some of you joining us here today in the webinar. And if so, thanks so much for your participation. A little about our respondents. We asked them to kind of self-identify. We deployed the survey to our full subscriber list. So that goes to just about every institution in the country. And we asked them to describe themselves as part of the survey. What type is your institution? Private 4-year was the leader, public 4-year close behind, public 2-year or community colleges behind that, and then a small percentage of private 2-year. So more or less this correlates with kind of the number of institutions nationally. There are more private 4-year institutions, small colleges. And you see this, we also asked them to identify their institution's enrollment. So you can see the significant majority, 60%, have under 5,000 students. Makes sense because there are just more of those institutions out there. And then kind of a diversity of 5 to 10,000, 10 to 15, and then another 15% or so with over 15,000 students, the larger institutions.
Yeah,
so a good diversity. Yeah. A good diversity of types of institutions, sizes of institutions represented by those respondents. And then we also asked them to identify their job title or department. Of course, job titles vary a lot across higher ed. People selected more than 17 different titles or departments. Most commonly were these, starting at the top, president, vice president, facilities, student affairs, some faculty, campus mailroom staff, of course, auxiliary services, provost, vice provost, finance business officers, and technology people. So out of our whole subscriber list of higher ed leaders, a pretty diverse group here across institutions, types of institutions and sizes of institutions, but also job title. And I think that's because this topic, when they see that this is about campus mail, package delivery, a lot of people might have an opinion about that across the institution. They see the effect that it has on their institution, and it's not just affecting one department. So that's just a little background, and then we'll dive right into some of the questions here. So first off, a pretty high-level question to start off. Overall, has there been an increase in the volume of packages received by students, faculty, and staff on your campus compared to just 3 to 5 years ago? Pretty high level, and you would predict most folks would say yes. We just wanted to gauge rather than just yes or no. We provided a range here. So ranging from yes, there's been a significant increase, and that was the top answer, 43%, almost half saying that it's been pretty significant. Another 27%, over a quarter, saying there's been some, but another just 23% saying this has remained the same for them, and only 7% saying this has decreased. So right. Clearly, Jason, like I said, it doesn't come as a big surprise, but no. There's been an increase, and a lot of folks saying it's been a really significant increase just in 3 to 5 years.
Absolutely. And so 2/3 of the respondents are saying there's an increase. That's got to be at least what I'm hearing when I'm talking to folks out there, in the university space. It's almost everybody I speak to is seeing an increase. It's no surprise to see this at all.
Sure. And as we'll get into, that's created some challenges. So this is kind of setting the scene. Again, we've seen e-commerce and online shopping and things like that has been around a good number of years. But again, we're saying just since, right. 2017, 2015, last 3 to 5 years, it's still increasing. It's not staying the same. It's still increasing a lot.
Absolutely. I don't see the pattern of folks ordering things online changing in the opposite direction, it's going to continue to grow. I think it is personally, right? But even amongst folks who are entering college age, that is an important way that they are conducting most of their commerce is in this manner. So that trend is going to continue to follow.
Sure. And some of those, if it's creating challenges for your institution, that could only increase in the future here, right? So,
Yep.
so great. Let's continue on. Then we wanted to probe a little bit more for those who said yes, as we already alluded to. Would you say this has created significant problems for your institution? Again, providing a range there, not just yes or no, but definitely. And you see almost 15% saying definitely, have a strong feeling this has created significant problems. Somewhat, more than half, almost 60%, saying somewhat. And there's a small percentage here, less than a third, saying no. So they've been able to deal with the increase. But
Right.
really, you add that up, 70%, slightly more than 70% saying it's created some problems.
Yeah, and in my experience, if you have a modern facility, you might have the space to deal with the volume coming in. I think if you're, and I think this is the case for a lot of universities and colleges, they're in facilities in terms of receiving packages that have been around for a long, long time, and they were originally designed for mail coming in with some packages, not necessarily all these. And I know one of the larger institutions I went to, it probably fit in that 10 to 15,000 size. They had an much older building that was very cramped. It was literally a matter of stepping from side to side to kind of navigate your way through a package maze that had built up from the recent deliveries. And the small cramped space is of course an issue in terms of how much volume you're trying to put in there, but also your processing of that and how you handle that in a tight space can also be challenging. So there's all kind. Probably folks on the line have even better stories than I can come up with, but that's something I know I've seen in terms of the impact of all these packages.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good lead into, again, we wanted to probe a little bit more to get more specific. So those who said yes, that the increase in package delivery has created some challenges. We asked only them what were those significant problems, providing with a list, and they could choose all that applied. And here's what they said. Is a tie for the top answer here out of this list, lack of storage space, as Jason was just alluding to there. 77%, that was saying that was a serious challenge. Logistics of delivery and or pickup, also 77%. So those seem to be pretty serious issues. Another almost half saying recipients not picking up packages in a timely manner. Large amounts of cardboard. Of course, all these packages are coming in cardboard that you didn't have in the past, 35%. Recipients not present to receive the packages, 18%, or return packages for just 5%. So, yeah, Jason, as you were saying there, a lot of these institutions have older buildings, not designed for this. Trying to find room for all these packages, it takes up a lot more room than mail, as well as the logistics. Mail is probably a simpler logistically to handle than all of these boxes everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I look at this list, we kind of alluded to obviously the top one and the second one a little bit, but even if you kind of combine that recipients not picking up packages in a timely manner, as well as recipients not present to receive packages and return packages, the struggles around dealing with that mean, you're holding on to packages longer and having to maintain custody of those packages longer. There's a cost to that. Inventory is waste in the mind of some of the classes I had to take around operations, and it costs money to maintain those that space, that's valuable space. So these are related in my mind, and it also is related in terms of, how long does it take to, if you have delivery routes, for example, or you need to distribute to other parts of campus, how long does it take to get all of those packages where they go? Do the vehicles you have enough space to get them there? There's all kinds of complexities that start adding into the equation here, that packages present challenges beyond what mail did, several years ago.
Sure, yeah. Clearly created some challenges. It's interesting to see how people describe them. Okay, yeah, I'll move on here. Next question asked, when students on your campus order packages, online shopping, where and how are those packages delivered? So we are curious how institutions are doing this logistically. You saw logistics referenced in the previous question. How is this actually done for most institutions? So here's what they said. The top answer by a huge margin here, to one central mailroom to be picked up by the student. We offered some other scenarios here, to a central mailroom and then delivered out to students, or to lockers, 5% saying that, or delivered directly to dorms or apartments by a carrier, just 5%. So this sounds like it's going to be pretty related to what we've just been saying about lack of storage space, logistical challenges. Not only do you have this huge increase in packages, but it's all going to one central place, right?
Yeah, that's right. And what that often means, and I've seen this at a public university that I was at a couple of months ago, is the line. And just a regular Tuesday, Monday can be the worst day, I think, for a lot of universities, depending upon the hours they keep. But the lines that are happening, especially in the afternoon hours at the mail centers on campuses, for students to pick up their packages is getting is long. I think for a lot of folks, and everyone's looking for ways to deal with that. Some have, tried all kinds of methods, I'm sure. But the lines are long, and not only is that a stress on, the operations, but it's also something the students aren't thrilled about. These are the kinds of things where, as universities are, looking to, promote themselves in a competitive market for students. One thing they don't want the prospects to see as they're touring around campus is a huge long line just to pick up whatever you ordered from Amazon.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. We talk a lot in UB and other webinars about other topics, and in our magazine about changing student expectations for their college experience, and that seems to extend here. It sounds like this is a small thing, your mail operations, but students expect a very smooth consumer-like experience for everything on their college or university campus. And,
absolutely.
When you order things online and it comes to your house, it comes directly there. You have no line to think about. But so they're not expecting that to happen when they're at their school.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, who doesn't want to get their whatever they order? They want it, right? You're looking forward to it. Maybe it's something you've been waiting for a long time. So, yeah, you don't want to wait in an hour-long line to get it, or even 20 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, the student expectations piece is a huge challenge here.
Yep.
All right, so I'll keep it moving here. So again, this is a little bit broader question, but we were again kind of probing into the logistics of how this is done. And so we asked, overall, how centralized or decentralized is this process of shipping and receiving mail-in packages at your institution? And we provided a list of scenarios. Choose the one that's most like your institution. So pretty big margin here for the leader, saying all mail-in packages are handled through one central mailroom for both students and faculty or staff, 58%. This gets into not just students, as we've been mainly talking about so far, but faculty and staff as well. But another almost a quarter saying most are handled that way, but it kind of varies. Different faculty or staff departments handle some of this on their own. Then another 16% saying there are multiple locations around campus for students and faculty. And then very small saying each, just 2% saying each faculty or staff department handles its own. So clearly this is mostly centralized, but there's some that is not. And I think we're going to look at that with the next question here, some of the issues that can create in terms of visibility into your costs, and some of the issues here if it's not centralized, right?
Right, absolutely. There's an impact there. When I see this question, the thing that this reminds me that I try to remind myself whenever I'm going on campus is that every university, every college has a different starting point and has a long history of how we got to today. And, some universities and colleges, were able to, at one point in their history, decide, hey, let's consolidate all of this down into one single receiving area and distribution center. But, that can be expensive and not everybody can make that decision. It really depends. And then there's also preference. Some larger universities wouldn't want to get involved in all the different departments around campus. Maybe they're a city university and they're spread out. It doesn't make as much sense. But the student mail might make sense, right? So, and parcels for students, right? So there's all kinds of circumstances that are out there. And the most important thing for someone like myself is to understand what are the current state circumstances at the college or university, and what can we do to make an impact on those? Because when it does come to reporting and it comes to managing a service level agreement with your management staff, how do you get control of the information around all the packages that are and mail that are being moved through your system? And that's something we can talk about with you.
Sure, absolutely. And so, as I just alluded to, that question kind of sets up this question here. We asked them to describe overall how much insight their institution has into the total costs of all shipping, receiving, and postage being used by all departments at your college or university. So the previous question illustrated that there's some decentralization there. Different departments might do their own shipping. It depends on the circumstance. So we were curious how people would describe that, and here's what they said. Again, we provided a range. So it's good that more than 30%, of course, described it as extensive and detailed, but a lot more uncertainty. The leading answer is the second one there. Almost 45% saying just some insight into their total costs. Another 15% saying very little, and then 3 or 4% saying really none at all, which is pretty concerning, I would think. Jason, did this surprise you at all? What do you think about this one?
No, I think this is right. Once again, some universities have been able to, colleges, et cetera, have been able to make a decision to bring everything under control and start to put that into place. That doesn't mean they have all of their issues solved, but yeah, that's been an initiative. But I think for a lot of folks, it's sort of been, we've been doing it this way for a long time, and until recently, there wasn't all that much pain behind it. But that pain might be starting to grow, and I anticipate, that's why we're here talking about that. So yeah, I think this is what I would have expected to see in this case, and for those who are getting good extensive detail, I'm always interested in finding out what is it you like about it, what's helpful, And for those who aren't, tell me about what isn't working, and it usually creates a great conversation.
Sure, sure. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so those are kind of the main highlights of the survey here. So to recap, we asked about whether package delivery has increased. We saw there's been a significant increase just in the last 3 to 5 years. That's created a variety of challenges, logistically, storage space, and a lot of institutions are struggling to find solutions to those. You also have this question here talking about a lot of institutions don't quite have insight into their total costs. It's kind of a decentralized process, and projecting out, this trend is only going to increase. The increase is only going to continue. So if it might be something to think about. If today you have some serious challenges and you don't have insight into your costs, project that out a few years into the future, that increase continuing, those challenges could get worse and worse. Those costs could get worse and worse. So it might be something to think about. So we identified a lot of challenges here. That's something that these surveys do a great job of. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason. He works with a lot of institutions there at Pitney Bowes to tell us a little bit more about some trends and some solutions to some of the challenges we've been talking about. So, Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kurt. And once again, it's a real pleasure to speak with everyone here who's joined, and thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with us. As we were just sort of finishing up the survey, we spent a lot of time talking about the inbound impact, but you might also have some outbound volume that you need to get your hands around. And that number is also growing, no surprise. So Pitney Bowes does a lot of work to understand the trends in the industry. And just one thing I wanted to point out was that throughout your organization, not only folks are also shipping outbound more per capita as well. So over the last 4 to 5 years, we're seeing that almost double in terms of how much people are shipping out. Don't forget about folks who are doing their own returns and transactions and so forth, right? So how do you handle that? How do you work together? And Pitney Bowes has got a lot of folks who really focus in on this area. In terms of providing you with the tools and the applications to be able to empower employees to make decisions about what's the best, most efficient way to send a package or parcel. And there's all kinds of important things to keep in mind. We wouldn't have time to go into all of that here, but just very simply, I think most of you know this, that you don't need to necessarily send something overnight. In some cases, if it's in the next town over or within the same zone, you might be able to save a lot of money by utilizing a different service from the USPS, for example. So these are the types of tools that help empower those decisions, and we can really spend some time with you. So please do reach out to us if you have to consolidate and bring under control that whole sending process. We want to make sure you have all of the information about that at your fingertips. So going back to sort of this inbound discussion that we've been spending most of our time on today, once again, Pitney Bowes, the parcel shipping index that we provide is showing the trends here, right? And no surprise, as we talked about, more than doubled the amount of volume of parcels in the system since 2014. And that trend is going to continue to grow as it's been 17% year-over-year increases. That's going to continue to grow. We think going to be 200 billion packages globally by 2025. And that's just from an annual standpoint. It's just an absolutely massive amount of shipping that's going on. So that obviously presents some of the issues like this pileup of parcels that you see here in the top right-hand corner, and that can present the challenge for getting to a happy recipient at the end over here on the bottom right. So, that's what we're talking about here today. And And, as we mentioned, there's a few folks who don't have or have very little automation or control around how they maintain chain of custody for their packages. So there's all kinds of different workflows that are out there. We want to make sure that we give you everything you need to handle that check-in process, to make sure that packages are put in the right place to go to the right destination, if that's your case. You might have a whole series of different status points in the delivery process that you need to capture in order to maintain that chain of custody for those packages. And that's an important thing to consider. We really want to help you ensure that you've got proof of delivery in maintaining this chain of custody. Perhaps you need photographs of suspicious items that you want to be able to maintain against that record. Or maybe you have lots of questions coming in about packages and where they are. How do you handle all of that? And do you have everything you need to do that? So that's where it really comes into play, where Sensory Tracking Online, one of our products, it really helps satisfy all of those issues. It would provide you with a very simple user interface. So when we say no training required, I mean, if you can, handle a typical email system, web-based email system, you can handle Sensory Tracking Online, no problem. And we've got great options around scanning those packages to easily capture information and automated email notifications that really can be customized to work with your workflow to make sure you're alerting your faculty or your students in the way that makes sense for your university. And then finally, what we talked about here is some of the major pains around the lack of storage and the challenges of logistics and delivery for pickup. One of the small colleges that I got a chance to spend some time on campus, they have a growing graduate program. It's mostly handled by adjunct professors. These adjunct professors show up around 5 p.m. for the evening classes. Well, as you know, the mail center is closed by then at this particular university, at college. And so getting packages is particularly challenging. So one of the great options that we're really proud of here at Pitney Bowes is to be able to provide intelligent locker solutions. And this is going to just help you ensure that you have a way to get parcels to your recipients on a time that works for them, while maintaining that chain of custody, while improving that end user experience. And as we talked about earlier, potentially really reducing the lines at the choke points within your delivery system. It's gonna reduce the amount of undelivered packages that you may have in your system. So we really see a lot of great value points. And once again, this can be customized and tailored to work with your workflow. And the reason why I can say that is because this is a fully integrated locker system. This goes directly connected to our Sensory Tracking Online system, so that when you're making a decision about a parcel at the check-in point, when you receive it from the carrier, you can actually access the locker in terms of availability and reserve a space for that package before you make a decision on whether or not it's going to be delivered to that locker. And of course, if you can't deliver it to a locker, you still need to maintain a chain of custody on that parcel. So of course, you want to have one system handle the whole process, whether it's in a locker, whether it's being delivered, or whether it's being picked up in the mail center, or whatever your workflow needs. That kind of adaptability is really important when you're considering how to improve your system, and to have one central place to manage it and report on it, I think is really going to make a significant difference for you, especially if you're finding the struggle of all of these incoming packages. So that's the high level. We certainly can get into the details, and we'd love to talk more with you if you'd like to get more information on our Sensory Tracking Online products and the Intelligent Locker product.
Sure. Very interesting. Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for being with us here. And yeah, if any of you have questions, now's your chance. We're going to get to the Q&A at this point. First, a couple reminders. We got couple questions there asking about, will this be made available to attendees or registrants? And yes, again, everyone who registered or attended will be getting a follow-up email with links to the slides as well as the recording. So you'll be able to go back over it if you want to share with anyone at your institution. You'll be able to do that. Also, if you do have a question, please feel free to enter in the Q&A at the right-hand side of your screen there, bottom right-hand corner, and we'll get to as many as we can here. Let's see, we talked about a variety of issues around this, Jason. One question says, FedEx and UPS currently deliver packages to our dorms, but we're losing insight and can't prove they were received. How would we go about streamlining and centralizing our operation to overcome this? You have thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Ultimately, there's so many questions around the workflow at your location. But one thing we can do is if they need to deliver to other locations outside of your central receiving area, or maybe you don't have one, utilizing our mobile tracking assistance to Sensory Tracking Online would give you opportunity to receive those packages at that point from the different carriers, even if it's not your main receiving area. These devices can be cellular enabled as well if there's any kind of issue from a connectivity standpoint. So that's one piece. Of course, working with the carriers to suggest a central delivery location is another. We've definitely had some experience with working with the different carriers to determine the most efficient way for us, for you, for them. They're struggling to get all these packages out to all the locations they need to get to as well. So oftentimes they're really open to having that discussion.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see, another question you shared with us the locker solution there, and someone just asked about. Can you share any feedback from your customers using the locker solution? What's that been like for colleges and universities you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think feedback it depends on who you're asking. If you're asking students, it's like a very quick transition into this is the reality that I expect, and they just dive right in and utilize it. And I've actually seen students walking up to these lockers that we have, and there's a smile on their face because it's a simple, easy to use process, and there's that technology behind it that I think is also a little bit satisfying, especially from a student perspective. And I think once again, reducing the need to be in lines, potentially utilizing distributed locker network, putting those packages closer to dorm rooms or residence facilities, all these can really improve that experience, and they like that. I think faculty and staff, right? So there may be some adjusting there, but once again, it's a simple solution, and I think it generally works for all those folks as well. So lots of good feedback on the improvement of having lockers in the workflow.
Sure. Someone else asks, do you have any suggestions on documenting ROI on package technology costs? Do you have any ideas there?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the great things about having all of the data, the information around packages, and knowing, for example, how long were these packages in your system from receive until deliver. And, working with you, we can help identify what you consider some of those cost expenditures per package and help determine some of that ROI. That's definitely something we can work with you on. And also the cost of the lockers, right? So some folks are saying, well, maybe I don't have a budget for that right now and I need to get creative. One suggestion that we have is that, as you may have noticed on the image prior, we have our brand all over the locker. And that is done by an external wrap, a vinyl wrap. That, of course, we put our brand on there because we're promoting Pitney Bowes. But that can be wrapped with any branding or potentially advertising that you would be interested in using. There's the image again. So one suggestion is working with marketing opportunities within the university to brand and or advertise on those lockers. And that can actually turn it into a revenue generating operation. So that's a suggestion that we have for universities looking to get creative around that. And other universities may have some technology related fees. IT departments, et cetera, get involved at that point. So there's probably a lot of different ways to approach that, but there are options around generating a fee structure for this as an additional service as well.
Okay, sure. Some great advice there. Someone else asked, how can, what are some ways to push customers to pick up packages in a more timely manner?
Right.
What are some options to rotate packages in storage while waiting for the latecomers to show up? People not picking up in a timely manner, that was one of the challenges that people identified. Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, absolutely. Within SenSuite Tracking Online, we have a very customizable reminder system that can be put into place. So, if you want to provide a regular reminder, maybe daily or whatever, whatever frequency you'd like to put into place, we can automate that process. So you're not having to click a send reminder for each individual package. It's going to automatically do that while it's waiting for the status to change for that package. One of the other things that adding the lockers into play is we can set what we consider a stale package date. That's one way to put it. There's all kinds of terms, but essentially, let's say after 24 hours or after 48 hours or whatever you desire, you would like to free up that locker again. We can set a reminder for students to come pick up that package in the next, 12 hours, or it's going to be returned to the mail center, and then you'll be waiting in the dreaded line. So maybe you don't have a dreaded line, but you know what I mean. In other words, it's a less desirable potentially situation to have to go back, and that's one way to motivate folks to get their packages out of the lockers before they become stale or in there too long. And once again, reporting around that and having information about your average time in locker for packages and parcels, that kind of information can be really helpful in helping you determine, the best way to manage these parcels that tend to hang out a little too long.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we had some other folks asking similar questions. What do you do if students don't pick up packages from the lockers? So it sounds like you have a system for that of customized reminders.
It's customizable, so you will work with you to find out what makes the most sense.
Okay, sure. When it comes to the lockers themselves, a question asking about can these be placed outside, or do they have to have these inside one of the buildings if space is a constraint?
Yeah, great question. We have outside deployments, absolutely. Now, when it comes to outdoor lockers, there's definitely a lot more preparation that goes into it. I mean, there's preparation for both, so don't get me wrong. But given that these lockers do require power, they require internet. We've got options on how to get internet there. But they also will require covering. So depending upon the location, I'm up here in New England, and we're having a nice, I'd say, early spring so far, which I'm happy about. But sometimes March can be very depressing and cold and snowy. So how do you want to position those lockers in a safe way? We have options for moisture sealing, for insulation, and for covers. So there's all kinds of options, but we need to understand your environment before we'd even begin to suggest exactly the best way to do it. And also, whether it's indoor or outdoor, we have an entire site survey process that each customer would go through with our analyst team to make sure we understand all of the factors involved, even if it's an indoor locker.
Okay, sure. And then related question asking if does the size of the institution, the college university matter, or who have you worked with there? Does it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we've worked with small colleges that are simply looking for a 4-column simple system, because they've got 1,000 students or something like that. We've got several of those. We've got very large universities, public major conference type schools, right? And they have distributed placements around their campus with large locker systems, and of course we've done in between. A liberal arts 4-year college with several thousand students and a very busy on-campus life, and we've done some with those that have this mixture of commuter and on campus, right? So it's different. And actually, going back to the beginning when you talked about talking to the different roles within the university, that's why one day we're talking to the mail center, one day we're talking to auxiliary services, another day we're talking to facilities, because and other days we're talking to residents' life and the resident housing, right? So it can come from all different kinds of scenarios even within a single university.
Okay, yeah, sure. It's affecting a lot of departments across campus. Let's see, a two-part question here, just kind of a features question, asking, so what opens the locker for the customer? Is that with a smartphone or Bluetooth or some sort of device? And then also, do the lockers timestamp when the pickup has occurred?
Yes, yeah. So that's an easy one, and the answer is yes. Every single action is recorded, and this is the key, communicated back to the chain of custody and Sensory tracking online, right? So not only is the locker recording it for its own purposes and for that sort of time of delivery, et cetera, in terms of reporting, but that is also sent back to the chain of custody for that package. So that's that. Now, when it comes to opening the lockers, there's multiple options, but the two most common ones are a barcode that we provide in a message, whether it's a text message or an email. And that barcode can be scanned right at the locker, and at that point, it's going to go into a workflow according to your design, capturing a signature, taking a picture of the recipient, both or neither, or some other combination of workflow that you have in place or that you want to have in place. And then once we do that, then the locker pops open, and the student or faculty member picks up their package. If they received more than one package, multiple doors can open up at one time. Or you could put multiple packages in a single door. So there's a number of different ways that can work, but the point there is that barcode is the most typical way to open up a package, but you could also utilize a PIN code and have the end user type it in on screen for accessing the locker. We also have, one more thing, we also have some up-and-coming options in terms of utilizing student badge IDs, right? So that is somewhat dependent upon the system that the college or university is using. So, but we can work with multiple different access card vendors in terms of utilizing that in the workflow as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah, a lot of options there. Thank you. Let's see. Another one question says, if I have multiple campuses, can your system be used at all sites? I'm assuming they're thinking like centrally and then spreading it out to all different campuses.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So starting with Sensory tracking online, that of course can be multiple locations And then from there, you could designate one or multiple lockers per campus location. At the, whether you have a central receiving or multiple different receiving points for those multiple different campuses, we can handle it no problem. I think that's one of the strengths that we really bring to the industry. And once again, being able to, at that point, being able to reserve a locker at the point of receive, no matter what campus you're on and no matter which locker you're interested in delivering to, can really be very powerful and a great time saver for the folks who are receiving these packages from the carriers.
Right, sure. Yeah, sounds like a great solution to many of the challenges that we've been talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. Offhand, I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer this. Someone asked us, do you know roughly how many institutions you're working with, or do you not know that offhand?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, but it's hundreds, right? So we've got lots of opportunity, lots of lockers out in the field. Not all of them are universities, but yeah, we do. We've got extensive experience in this space, large government placements, the kind that don't prefer their name to be given, and then some very large enterprise type deployments as well. So we've got a diverse set of customers when it comes to lockers, but a lot of experience in this space.
Okay, great. All right. Well, appreciate taking the time, Jason, for this webinar and sharing your time and expertise with us here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've hit all of our questions here. Thanks to everybody in the audience who submitted your questions, for your participation. And I'll wrap things up here. On behalf of all of us here at University Business, I'd like to thank our speaker for today, Jason, as well as our sponsor, once again, Pitney Bowes, for their generous support of our webinar. And to all of you in our audience, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this presentation informative and useful to you. Producing webinars like this is just part of our mission here at UB to inform college and university leaders like you about the latest news and trends in higher ed management. You'll find more coverage about issues such as the ones we discussed here in the pages of our print magazine, as well as on our website and in our daily e-newsletter, UB Daily, as well as our other newsletters, which you can sign up for right on our website. And as I mentioned before, for those of you who would like to share the content of this event with anyone on your team at your institution, you can access the recording by going to the URL on your screen here. We'll also include the link to it in the follow-up email that you'll receive later on, as well as links to the slides if you want to go back over them as well. So keep an eye out for that follow-up email. You'll be receiving that soon. So that is it for today's event. Once again, I'm Kurt Osley-Durley for University Business. On behalf of everyone here on our production team, goodbye, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining us.